Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon to my friends in Europe. It is Wednesday, April 16th. I hope everybody's doing great. Mark, you're wearing red, but it's not Thursday. That's right, folks. We have a tradition on the trading floor where the traders would wear a red polo on Thursdays. It was called Red Shirt Thursday, and I continue that tradition. However, the market is closed on Friday. So do I wear my red shirt on Thursday, which is really a Friday? Or do I wear my red shirt on Wednesday, which is this week's Thursday? I wear it on Wednesday. So today in our state of the market, I'm going to break down what's going on in the market, what, the shoe that dropped last night, what it means. We'll talk about the levers I am looking at still for this market and where they stand. And then there has been two huge government-led, call them earthquakes in the market. Number one, China and their restriction of rare earth exports and magnets. And then two, the restriction of NVIDIA chips to China. I'm going to bring on our resident man of K Street and Wall Street, our own Frank Gregory, and he's going to break down everything going on with NVIDIA and the chip side and on the rare earth side, and we're even probably going to give you a trade. So stay tuned for that, but let's dig into this market. Well, things looked like they were calming down. If we want to share my screen, things really did look like we were starting to calm down here. The S&P had gotten this nice rally, kind of held its levels, and then had kind of bounced, kind of clung on near 5,400, falling just shy of it yesterday, but an inside day. That's what I was kind of liking, was that on Tuesday, the market really didn't move that much, and it really didn't move that much on Monday either. Those inside days, less movement, that tells you the market is calming down. Not one of my main levers, but it does tell me the market is calming down. Now, I want to remind you of my levers. One, what is the bond market doing? Is it stable? Two, is the Russell 2000 leading? And then three, VIX term structure, how the VIX traders, the volatility traders, are forecasting the market right now. So let's take a look at these levers. And we'll start with the bond market. And, after last week's scare, things really do seem to have calmed down. Still have some recovery to make, but the Fed carry trade that unwind appears to be over. So the major selling in the long bond and in the 10-year all seem pretty stable. Back into the curve, a little more touch and go, but the 10-year has really recovered. And IEF is that ETF for kind of following the 10-year note. So, number one, bond market looks all right. Now, let's look at IWM. Russell 2000. It's down 0.5%. The Dow down 0.7%. The S&P down 1.3. The NASDAQ down 2. So small caps down. Like, I want to see small caps leading us on a green day, not a red day. But the fact that the Russell 2000 closed on Tuesday positive and is outperforming the other ETFs, what does that tell me? There's some underneath the radar buying in the market and traders trying to kind of figure out where the bottom is. So we're going to call this a mixed signal. If if IWM was up 1.4% and the S&P and the NASDAQ were up less than that, that would be a different story. Then we'd be saying, okay, Russell's really leading us. But in a down market, mixed signal. And then finally, we have VIX. All right, now we're down 70, 1.25%. VIX is up about 1%. Right, when I'm looking at VIX, I really look at the raw points, not the percent that it's moving. We had April options and futures expire this morning. So April's now off the books. And we can get a clean look at what our curve looks like. And yesterday, and the piece I'm watching is this relationship. All right. The formation we're in is called backwardation. The VIX index, that's this green line, is trading above this futures curve. Each of these dots represents a contract for May, and then here's June, here's July. They're currently, when the VIX is high, futures typically price in that there'll be a pullback. What I care about is how is May trading against June? And what I want to see is the whole curve to come down, but May to come down faster, and the curve to kind of start to look like this. And that is really our last piece. When we see this curve, this relationship between the VIX index, the VIX futures flatten up, we'll now know that we're ready to play long. All right. Now, obviously, overnight, we got some pretty cruddy NVIDIA news. Frank and I are going to delve into that, but that's been kind of the precursor. But it's not like it's just NVIDIA. Apple, after a nice pop coming out of the weekend, is now back to 197. It is not performing well. AMD is going to take a big charge. This isn't great for Broadcom. There's a lot of tech that is getting beaten here. But the rest of the market really is not that bad. You've got kind of your super 7, your Mag 8, if you will, and AMD. And then the rest of the market, here's my big monitor. The rest of the market is not really getting that beaten. This is really coming out of XLK and a little bit XLC. Strength today is in energy and in materials. All right. So there's kind of our state of the market. My feeling for today, I'm watching this first hour very closely, and I'm watching the VIX soften and soften, and I want to see if this market gets bought. I want to see if IWM not being down very much is a bit of a canary in the coal mine. So I don't know how much lower we drop from here, but there is a real possibility that we could catch a bid. That's kind of what I'm watching. So, to talk about what he's watching in the government and what he sees out there with the last 24 hours of big government announcements, one out of China and one out of the United States, who better to break it down than our own man of both K and Wall Street, Frank Gregory. Frank, good to see you.
You too, Mark. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
Yeah,
I
like to hear
I'm
that.
excited about Villanova's new basketball coach.
Who couldn't be?
And then you really do have it the best of both with the Villanova Duke thing. College basketball season is pretty easy for you. One of those teams is doing something.
Well, now I've got a new one, Mark. My daughter's going to Michigan State University next year. So
she's going to be a Spartan.
Spartans.
Nice. So 3.
So now I had to go and I had to get a new hat now. So.
Well, congratulations. That's great.
Yeah.
She's going to love Michigan State.
Yeah,
that's a fun school. And so now basically between those 3 schools, you're going to be in the Final Four every year.
We can only hope.
All right. So, but now let's talk about the final 2. And those are these final 2 orders that have just come out. And I want to start with the Chinese rare earth discussion because you have real domain knowledge on in the rare earth space. Frank, am I allowed? Is it okay if I talk about this, Frank? I don't want to put you out there if you're not allowed to.
No, it's public, yeah.
Right. So Frank helped take a rare earth company public, and was heavily involved in that. So when I say he's got domain knowledge, I'm not kidding you. He's got domain knowledge. So we're going to hit on the company that he took public, and then we're going to hit on another company. So let's start with these rare earths, and let's talk about what just happened with China.
Sure.
And what the ripple effects are near term, and then what are the investment opportunities long term.
Yeah. Look. First of all, it's a misnomer because rare earths are not rare. They're all over the place. The problem with them is finding them in a high enough concentration that it pays to take them out of the ground and process them. And number 2, it's mining and it can be a little dirty. So, there's been a lot of pushback, and, going back 30, 40 years, the United States was the dominant player in rare earth. And what do you typically do with rare earth metals? There's 17 of them. By the way, what's rare earth? Mark, could you pull up the periodic table by any chance? Because
Sure.
if you look at the periodic table, there was always that one section, the periodic table of elements. There was always that one section down on the bottom that no one knew what it meant, and those ones on the bottom are the rare earths.
These ones
those bottom 2 lines are the rare earth metals, and they go into almost everything we use in the modern world. Your cell phone has multiple rare earths. I think a Tesla has 900 pounds of rare earth in it. Fighter jets, you name it. There's one called europium is one of them, and that does the heads-up display in fighter jets, for instance. So these are insanely important metals to our everyday lives, but they're also insanely important from the standpoint of national security because without rare earths, we're not making electric vehicles. We're not making jet fighters. We're not making missiles. We're not making semiconductors or AI. We're not going to advance AI. We're not doing robotics or green energy without them. So they become incredibly important. Going all the way back years and years ago, we were the dominant player, particularly when it came to magnets. Magnets are one of the biggest byproducts of rare earth, or outputs of rare earth. And we let China come in and steal all of our tech, our patents, everything, brought it back to China, brought our smartest people who were in the space back to China. And it's very interesting. If you go back to going all the way to the Obama administration early on, he started to recognize there's a thing called rare earth, and we should probably keep an eye on it. Meanwhile, the premier of China back then came out and said, rare earth is China's oil. And they have been weaponizing it ever since. And so today, close to 90% of the rare earth is produced and refined in China, and almost 99% of the heavy rare earths, which are the ones that are super important for some of the magnets and other things. So this is not about just supply chains for the U.S. for us. It's about national security for the U.S. because China weaponizes this constantly. They cut off supplies. They make announcements like they just did, and it's more critical minerals, not just rare earth, but this is the kind of thing that can weaponize against the U.S. and in China's mind, bring us to a industrial halt.
Well, that doesn't sound very good.
Well, no, I think it's not very good overall, but it's really good for some companies that are trying to build out domestic U.S. supply chains of both rare earth and of the outputs. And there's really at the moment two that are doing well, and that one is Mountain Pass, MP Materials, ticker MP, and Andrew and I have made some great trades in that over the last year and a half. MP was the first producing rare earth metals mine in the United States, so got a lot of backing from the government, a lot of money, a lot of support. But there's a dirty little secret to MP. They are about 22% owned by an entity that is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. So they are not a 100% U.S., but they are U.S. owned. They are trying to build out U.S. Manufacturing. In fact, they're trying to bring a magnet manufacturing plant online in Texas. The other one is, and again, full disclosure, is the one I was involved in and am still involved in as an investor. Called USA Rare Earth, ticker USAR. Just launched, came out through a SPAC last month in February, actually late January. And there's a rare earth mine in Texas that they will be taking metals out of the ground with. Haven't done it yet, but they will be taking metals out of the ground. It's a massive concentrated supply. It's got 15 of the 17 rare earths, so it's a pretty concentrated mine. They've got a processing facility in Colorado, and they are in fact now breaking. They've launched their magnet manufacturing facility in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So they are the most complete mine to magnet strategy thus far. But they're new. Andrew and I have looked at them. There's very little options activity in this stock at the moment. But I've been toying around with it a little bit. Actually, I was telling Andrew this morning. It had dipped down. I bought some at 7.5, just sold some at 13 yesterday. So had a nice little movement on it. But that was more for my own little fun than anything. So, but those are two of the ones that are really up and running. There are, however, a couple more that are in the pipeline. Perpetua Resources, PPTA, which we do have a little bit in option. PPTA, and they are just now they're more critical mineral, not rare earth. So they could become the largest supplier of antimony, which is a critical mineral in Idaho. They've got a big mine in Idaho called the Stibnite Gold Project. Gold and antimony go together, so it's a combination gold antimony project. But antimony, again, very important for critical materials in the U.S., such as fighter jets, anything to do with the military. So that could be one that will get some attention down the road as well.
All right. So, but of these three, you feel MP's kind of the best run at this point.
MP has the most track record. It's got robust options activity in it. I'm obviously partial to USAR, but yes. It's just getting off the ground, and I don't know that particularly from an options trading standpoint. I think it's a buy and hold stock, but it's not we're just not seeing the options activity around it yet.
Gotcha. No, you're correct. Although a little bit of action today, Frank. I was looking at USAR, and there is a little bit of action in May. You've got about 1,300 of the 15 calls trading. You've got the 18s, 19s, and 20s. So looks like somebody cashing out and then they're rolling a chunk of their position higher.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, the stock is up 17% since the open today. So
that's, I know. Nice little run here.
Yeah.
Nice little run. That makes me happy for you, Frank.
Well, here's the dirty little secret. When you're involved in these things, I have a 6-month lockup on being able to trade my shares. So all I can do is sit and watch the roller coaster for the next 6 months. But I did buy. I wanted to see the options activity. I wanted to see what was going on. So I did buy 100 shares in my my little trading account just to toy with them.
Nice. Well, looking at MP on the 2-year chart, I mean, this thing's sitting right below a 2-year high. Now back in 2022, this thing got up into the 60s.
Yeah, it cranked up. And again, MP, like USA Rare Earth, came out as a SPAC. So, they're kind of following, hopefully, that same model. I'd love to see USA Rare Earth pop up like that. We'll see where they go. You got to get some better announcements coming out of management. Just keep the momentum going. But that did come out as a SPAC, and like all SPACs, took a little hit in the beginning, had some good news, made a big run up. They had some good announcements, and then it's kind of been settling down into that mid to high teens, low 20s trading range for a while, which you kind of start feeling, all right, maybe that's where it should be. But certainly now you get some news that's come out over the last couple of weeks, and it's just you should see a natural pop on that.
Yeah. It's trading at lows. I mean, it hasn't been this high since the first quarter of 2023.
Yeah.
But again, it did get up to 60. Was there the push from 30 up to 60 through, was 2021 into 2022? Was this run news driven, or was it just, hey, it's 2021 and this is America, stocks go up?
It was a news driven. You started seeing some clampdown on Chinese exports. It was also the start of the Ukraine war, so we were very concerned that we were going to have supply chain problems. You're coming out of COVID, supply chain problems. Ukraine war was starting to kick in, supply chain problems, and the need for, particularly in a wartime footing, the needs for these metals started kicking up. As the only U.S. supplier at that time, it got a little out over its skis, if you will. It should have been at 60. No, there was nothing supporting that, from a fundamental standpoint, but news. And that's why, it ran up, people took some profits, settled back down again. And, I think long term, like I said, it seems to, it trades in that high teens, low 20s, trading range, pretty consistently.
All right. Now, the second major news was NVIDIA, the restriction of chips, but that's also hitting AMD and Broadcom and Qualcomm and Apple. You want to give out just a real brief overview of what you saw? Because I knew this just hit last night, so it not in the same thing you've been looking at for the last 2 years, like rare earth.
Yeah, but is this new? I mean, we've had these chip wars now have been going on for a while. I mean, Biden instigated it. I mean, people forget that everyone's coming out screaming, "Oh my God, a tariff!" like it's kryptonite. But we had tariffs slapped on the chip industry, going back 4 or 5 years ago. So this is nothing new from that standpoint. Yes, it's very newsworthy because of the volume of it. But again, it's going to highlight the need for the U.S. to make its own sustainable, supply chains for these very critical pieces of technology. Where you go, that's a tough question. I mean, look, if you start looking at what company is getting a lot of love, there's two really that have been getting a lot of love from the U.S. government. One's been Intel, and the other's TMRC. Those are the two that have really been getting a lot of love. And one of the things I like about TMRC is they've not only been getting government love, but they're also putting a lot of their own money into U.S. manufacturing.
Texas Mineral Resources Corp.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Taiwan Semiconductor, TMRC.
Oh, TSM.
TSM. Sorry.
I was like, Frank, are you pitching an 81-cent stock to these people?
By the way, that little stock had gotten up to 250 at one point. TMRC. So,
All right. So Taiwan
so
Semiconductor.
just so you know, Mark, kind of funny anecdotal story. TMRC was the company that we originally bought the USA rare earth mine from.
Oh, there you go.
But they held on to a 30% ownership for a long time. So when it went public, they got a nice little.
Good for them.
But I think TMRC is now a dead entity. So, but yeah, it's Taiwan Semiconductor. Sorry, and so they are putting a lot of their own money, into U.S. manufacturing. They're getting a lot of love from the government, particularly from the state of Arizona. Arizona is just head over heels in love with the chip sector.
Yeah. Yeah, Intel has been stuck in a funk.
Management can't get, they're a classic example of bad management.
Yeah, I'm hoping this new person comes in. The foundry business by itself is worth more than Intel. Their stake in Mobileye, in the electronic driving company is worth more than Intel. It is just kind of nuts that the sum of the pieces are worth 2 or 3 Intels. And you're right, 100%. They are getting a lot of love on the foundry side.
Yep. So Intel and then like I said, Taiwan Semiconductor are the two that I was a little shocked this morning on that AMD news.
Yeah.
In fact, last night when that came out, you asked me to come on this. I had AMD as my little pitch stock in the back of my head, and then this morning I got blown up.
Yeah. So let's give everybody an idea here. I'm liking MP because if this is going to be news driven, and we think that this thing could play out for a few weeks. The China-US thing is probably the only tariff thing that could play out for a little bit. You may get some continued news-driven upside.
Yeah. 100%.
We don't even have to go for a huge target. We could just target 30 to start, but
and I don't know if everybody saw, but Trump came out again late yesterday talking about possibly slapping even higher tariffs on critical minerals coming out of China. So, I think there's, I don't know how long this window is going to stay open, but there's definitely an open window at the moment.
Yeah, there is. And earnings are May 8th. And, it's up 10%. You have earnings. The May 30 calls are about $1.85. Those do not seem expensive to me on a relative basis. They're expensive. 80% implied volatility is expensive. If I was working with, my traders in a trading desk or, any of my kind of behind the paywall, we would talk about these May 30 calls. And then I would then talk about how, spreading might make some sense here because the option price on the 28s, 29s, and 30s are on a relative basis less expensive than upside. Now, how do I measure option prices? It's not this price, the $1.90 for the May 30s. It's this number. Now, this number is implied volatility, but when you look at the number implied volatility, you can just think about that number as the cost of that option. And so the 30 calls cost me about 81.5%. But if I sold the 35 calls, I would be getting about 90%. So I'm getting an advantage there by spreading, by trading an option that is relatively cheaper than the one that is higher. That's kind of your next step, folks. But for now, I think a simple, easy trade is the May 30 calls somewhere between, $1.50 and $2, anywhere in that range. I think you're going to be happy you you bought those calls, because this thing is probably going to 30. I'd be targeting, if it gets to $30, I'm going to sell, 90% of my calls, maybe hang on to one just to see how high this thing can fly. All right, folks. Today is our, we're deadlining the $19 join Delta Strike. And I want to invite you guys all to try it for $19. That's less than Frank's brand new Spartans ball cap. And actually, it won't let you down like the Michigan State football team does all the time.
Wow.
But so click the link. You get to meet with me live every day for a full week, evaluate the process, evaluate what I do. I go through what I'm looking at the markets, kind of like what we just did, but a little more detail. Go through a watch list I put out to you guys every day, and then dig for potentially a new trade idea. Every single day we're looking at the market. So it's a real opportunity to try hanging out with me for $19. And hopefully, now that I threw out that May 30 call idea, I've got to kick back and wait 5 minutes before I do anything myself. That's one of our rules here. But I would note that is by far the most active strike, and you do have some pretty good buyers there. So a little big money flow there, confirming Frank's idea. All right.
Hopefully it's a good one.
Yeah, I hope so as well. All right, folks, until things calm down, I will be with you every day. So you have nothing to worry about. I want you to join me, and then click this link and join me for $19 in Delta Strike. So with that, I'll stop my share. For Frank Gregory Esquire, I am Mark Sebastian. I am your only option, and we hope you have a great Red Shirt Wednesday. Catch you later, guys.
Thanks, Mark.